This is from
Hey, it's Joe Russo.
Hey, it's Danny Pudi.
Dan Harmon.
Tim Sicardo.
Chris McKenna.
So we got you.
Bon voyage. It's our goodbye to Donald Glover. Very sad.
Very, very sad. So we this is the culmination of us going like, oh shit, Donald Glover's doing 5, not 6, not 13, not 3, but 5, which means we got just enough time to get Community back on track, try to convince people we're worth trusting again, and then no sooner have we done that we need to start seeding. We can't just drop like a sandbag, okay, I'm leaving. We can't make it a joke. We also definitely can't do a MASH finale with him spelling out hello or goodbye and rocks as Abed leaves in a helicopter. So what do we do? And
Spoiler alert.
The answer was, what's the new paintball? Kind of like, wouldn't Troy and Abed say goodbye to each other in a way that would actually, like, what would make you cry? What would you really be saying goodbye to? Let's meet it head on. So we thought, let's do 3/4 of a paintball and spend the last quarter with, making you cry and saying goodbye to him. So this was the result. And I think Hot Lava, we had forever been pursuing the idea of doing Hot Lava, not understanding how you could possibly do that. And for the longest time, the biggest issue was, we know how to do Hot Lava. If carpet is lava, then, and we had, because in a natural disaster movie, you need to have that scene where there's the lava flow and the carpet, the dean will be rolling out carpet toward the people. I'm getting exhausted.
We wrote that
telling you about it.
The entire first draft was just to get to a point where there was a carpet rolling down a hallway. Like, it was like...
Sometimes you get hung up. Sometimes there's those moments where you know what the whole episode should be built around because you have this, like, cave painting in your head. Sometimes those things are gods, and sometimes those things are devils.
No, it's happened to us a few times on the show. G.I. Jeff, it was, the moment where G.I. Jeff has to kill Duke. Guess what? Not in the episode.
Yeah.
And this was this carpet rolling lava scene that we finally had to give up. And I will say, this season, we try to do what we had never done before, which is we are going to break 9 episodes in pre-production, and we are going to be meticulous about outlines. And before we send anyone out on a script, we are going to vet the thing to death. And it was really one of those moments where we were about to send our writer, Tim Sicardo, off on draft, and he was going to be doing a disaster movie like Poseidon Adventure with this episode. And it was one of these things where Dan just said, we can't do this. This isn't working. What if out of the cold open you come out and everyone is living in Waterworld, but with lava? And it was one of these things that we had toyed around with, and it was just one of these things like, yes, that's what we have to do. We had everyone just slowly doing a Poseidon Adventure crawl down a hallway for 3 acts.
Well, all of us
wasn't going to
watched
work.
those movies like Towering Inferno and Poseidon Adventure.
Oh,
I think we're like,
But
they're all
there's not
boring.
there's not a good one. They're
not good movies.
They're not good
They're
movies.
not
None of them are
RoboCop.
entertaining.
They're not Star Wars. They're
Absolutely.
not good movies. They're memorable, or rather, they have a place in pop culture. So yeah, that was the big epiphany. It was like, let go of your fucking cinematic heritage and actually embrace the Calvin and Hobbes, the childhood heritage. We before we saw Towering Inferno or Tommy Lee Jones and Anne Heche running from anything, what we're familiar with is walking on furniture and not being allowed to touch the ground. Now, what if grown-ups weren't allowed to do that? How would that affect their culture? So then we haul in this cat, Joe Russo, who did the Western paintball and I don't know, a couple episodes of seasons 1 or 2. You can Google it. But
It's Wikipedia.
he was charged with how do you? We're already over budget. We're already the bad boys. We're at episode 4. So you need somebody like, in the case of the first season, it was Justin Lin. It was you need a director who can tell the money people, don't worry about it. It's fine. We can do it. So Joe had acquired that panache. Like you were telling them, it's fine. We can do this. Like this scene, you're just running and gunning.
It's a phrase in the business we call "get them pregnant," and then take all their money.
By the way, the Locker Boys, I will just call out. I think it was Matt Roller who pitched this whole idea of like Locker Boys living in lockers. Like, and we were like, how do we make this scene funny? What's going on here? And it was one of those just like fun developments. Like, oh, this weird subculture of
Very
Nitwits
similar
living in
to the
lockers.
latest Childish Gambino video, I think.
Joe's one of the many ways that we were able to do something that feels this cinematic without taking 9 days instead of 7 or whatever it took is, when Joe came in, he said, well, it's an apocalypse, so emergency lights. Let's, I think you referenced J.J. Abrams at one point, like
Flares, right. We were talking about that because the thing was, how do you keep reminding the audience that the conceit is that the floor is deadly, right? Because it's not visually represented that way.
right.
So can we help? Can we use the camera work to help accentuate what the story is? So I think we came up with red or orange emergency lights everywhere that would constantly remind you that they're in a world of lava.
But also, it's actual fixed lighting, so you don't need to be making Gary
Exactly.
lose his mind in every camera setup.
We can move really quickly because we're using, like you said, practical lighting to light the scenes and the actors, making a lot of times you make creative choices that allow you to fit whatever number you got to hit, right? So,
And you know who's here? We didn't see because he's so skinny. Joel McHale.
Thank you.
Welcome, Joe McHale.
Joel and Deanie
Thanks,
talk
Chris.
about doing all this stunt work on these chairs.
I can tell you when you centipeding rubbed all the skin off of my knees, and every time we had to do it, because then we put on knee pads, but the knee pads would rub back and they would just move. And I remember thinking, how many more times can I do this before I'm just gonna cry?
God. Were you guys having flashbacks to at this point, what was your political affiliation? Or you're like, all right, we fought for Dan to come back.
All I know is if Chevy was driving that thing that Jonathan Banks
we
was
would have
driving,
been hit multiple times.
No, it would have been crashed and set on fire by him. He's like, what the fuck?
I actually was a little embarrassed at certain points during the production of this that it's one thing to ask the actors to do a lot of crazy physical shit, and it's another thing if you don't keep them safe. And in this scene right here, when they're walking in here, they're supposed to be walking on tabletops and stuff, and there was just a point when it was like, okay, we're rushing too much, and like I think Donald's foot went through like a cabinet or something, and there were like nails under it. And I became really embarrassed because I was like, what if someone got hurt? Like it's like I got so addicted to that idea that
And then we asked Joel.
I'm a bad showrunner, but I'm not. But I've never hurt anybody.
I'm sure I have no idea what you're speaking of. This is a place of peace.
And profit.
Come again?
You're not really playing Shirley. You're a merchant, and more power to you. But don't withhold power from others just to make money. We want the orb.
Abed. Listen, I'm still a little raw from what happened with Britta back there. I mean, fun is fun, but I don't want my last day here to be a day where everyone hates me.
Last day.
Citizens of Shirley Island.
What have you brought to my door? God, it's Hickey. And he's got chair walkers.
Come out with your feet on the floor.
we should give props to the stunt guys here, right? Because they're the ones that came up with.
Good Lord.
It was a bunch of Cirque du Soleil guys, and I'm not.
That's right. But we were trying to figure out what we could do with chairs and how we could move people throughout the episode, how they could travel throughout the school. And Casey O'Neill, our stunt coordinator, brought in some acrobats, and they just started messing around with chairs and figuring out ways you could use a chair or furniture.
They actually came up with the concept of centipeding, didn't they?
Right.
Yeah. Well, it was a nice back and forth between the writer's room and the stunt guys because we know we needed escalating modes of transportation.
Right.
And they just kind of, here's 8 ways you can move around, and we could kind of order them.
And then
just,
building towards, like, using these chair walkers. So it was great because I remember you brought, I mean, they were all from Captain America, right? Captain America 2.
They were.
Joe calls them Cap.
They were our Cap guys.
Cap guys.
Cap Deuce.
Cap Mare.
This is
they were
fucked up.
amazing.
Like, there's a lot of firsts in Community season 5. One is that we did a It's All a Dream episode. Another is that we broke the fourth wall. I've been running with their camera. These are people getting the shit beaten out of them physically. No more paintball. No more make believe.
We also have one of the
I fell on the
smallest
floor because I got hit in the head with a mop.
I want to point out we have one of the smallest budgets in network comedy at all.
And we always finish under budget, and they always spend the second half of the year telling us that we're egregiously over.
God bless Joe Russo, but I mean, this was the episode that then after
Look at those
every
guns.
episode after
Share
was
to dance.
Share to dance. Remember we were pitching all those on the floor. You're like, wait, come on, we can't do this. What were some of the other ones?
Oh God.
Share to remember.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
Hey, Seat Feet. Oh no, Seat Feet made it end. didn't it?
Yeah. But it was one of these things where this episode was epic, and it needed it because it was Donald's farewell. But every day after this, for the next 3 months, was so. What's your plan for getting back on budget? What's your plan? What's your plan? I don't have a plan. We made an awesome episode of television. What are you talking about?
Yeah, what's your plan for being in a fifth season of a show that nobody watches but is making you millions of dollars a year?
Yeah.
What was that your plan with
Everybody's watching.
Blacklist?
This is why Polygraphy was 3.5 days, and this one was like about 7.5 days. Guess what? Awesome.
Look at this, the orb.
It's called rolling dice, and we're allowed to do it with rich people's money.
By the way, the orb, I think, was one of those things that was like, it came, I think Parker Day
for
pitched
sure.
it.
Yes.
And it was one of these things where like, how do we fit this in? Are we really going to do this? I don't know. And I think Dan hated it for a long time.
I did because it feels random. Maybe if they all got in a big party ball like I saw at my frat brother's wedding.
Right.
That's my impression of Parker Day.
But I think like, in an episode that was like escalating
But
towards
this is, like,
nonsense.
yeah.
It's amazing.
Like,
but
you
it's
needed
just
this, like-
great, and not since the black hole has there been a ball destroying more stuff.
Well, at a certain point, it's like, yeah, what are we going to do with the hot lava episode? Because the truth is, what we're doing right now is we're crossing the return threshold in Campbell terms. And because it's an episode where we say goodbye to Troy and not an episode where we just nail Die Hard like we did in Paintball, we need to get the fuck out of this thing. At this point, that's all we're doing. Yes, it's okay for them to get in a plastic bubble and get the fuck out of here, because come next commercial break, we're going to pretend we never played Hot Lava.
Yeah.
That was the big difference. That's when I let myself go. It's like, you can fling yourself across the return threshold and let this thing go. The truth is, this whole thing was sort of a fantasy. It wasn't really what was for sale.
And what's interesting is that end part is the part that never changed. We always knew we were going to end up in the basement. We just had two completely different ways of getting there.
We knew the clone thing always had to stay.
Yeah.
Because much
Really
like Adam
sweet.
County's pitch to me of the tag for the 8-bit video game episode, when I heard the clone idea made me cry. The idea that Abed could, that Britta could play ball enough to license Abed to convince himself that he had been reborn in a sci-fi way. That everybody has different terminologies and different ways of expressing the same thing, which is the need for rebirth, the need to rejuvenate. And people who go to couples therapy and wear a blazer to work, they call it one thing, and people like Abed call it another. They express it in different ways, but we all need death and resurrection. And once Britta and Abed start playing ball together, then Abed is able to say, not only I'm ready to say goodbye, but also, oh, thank God I did that, because now I won't be as emotional from now on. and also, Britta was kind of sloppy. Like, those are Abed's needs. Like, I don't want to. I want to lambaste Britta for being sloppy, and I don't know. It makes me cry.
Danny, this scene with you and Donald. Talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, this was the scene. I mean, in terms of the goodbye, I think more so than even saying goodbye at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
I think this kind of sums up everything, because we're in our element, that adventure, and I think that's probably the most honest Abed's ever been with anyone,
Yeah.
And it was so important we made you sure to shoot it at 3 a.m. on a Friday.
The emotions are very close to the surface.
It was a
at that time.
Fincher-esque approach to the scene. We thought we'd wear you down physically.
Did it work?
Oh, yeah, it worked great. Yeah.
For somebody to say to somebody, I know that my craziness affects everybody around me, and I don't want to be crazy. So but I can't stop being crazy. So the best I can do is come up with a logical reason for everyone else to be crazy. It's insanely touching.
Yeah.
In a very L. Ron Hubbard, Howard Hughes way. There are people in our mythology that they can't help who they are.
The lava's here because you're leaving.
Well, that's the important thing too about like an absolute for community always is. No matter how crazy we would get with our exploration of genre or spoofing of genre, the show always has to come back to emotion and character at some point, because that's the dimensionality of the show. If you don't have that, then you lose texture, you lose the audience, because really it just becomes an intellectual exercise where I watched the episode. Oh, they did a great job of spoofing MASH. That was funny. But if you do a great job of spoofing MASH, and I cried at the end of it, then
but it's also,
you've
I
done
think,
something,
having
right?
like, Gillian is amazing in this, and so is Donald, by taking it so seriously, knowing that maybe they can't understand what Abed is going through in this moment, but they're going to try to help him.
They're going to have to, because they've been fucking up their own lives forever. They're not doing any better. And Abed's always making that point. And that's the big thing that I learned early on was an important thing about this series is that, okay, Abed could conceivably fit into the R2-D2 role, but R2-D2 doesn't drive Star Wars. In fact, you see in the prequels that R2-D2's been hanging out being Van Wilder's sidekick in the galactic scheme of things without affecting anything. Abed is the reason why all of these people are going to be changed forever. And in fact, the big challenge that they have to go through is most characterized by the fact that they need to learn over and over again that no matter how crazy they're willing to let life get, Abed will throw another curveball at them because he's the one who needs them to be together, and he is the biggest example of how fucked up humanity can get, how inhuman it can get. And so if there's a chance for him, there's a chance for anybody. And that's what I'm most proud of, is that our Pinocchio is not Pinocchio. Our Data is not Data. Our R2-D2 is the person who tells you whether Star Wars goes this way or that way. Our Luke Skywalker is more than just incidentally affected by it. It is his story. It's R2-D2's story.
The other thing to point out, Dan, about this stuff is it was shot at 3 or 4 a.m. on a Friday, but the other thing that makes community is that I remember everybody hanging out. And people had finished 8 hours earlier, still waiting around just to be there when Donald shot his last shot on the show. The crew, there's a certain sense of catharsis and loss. And, you know, I remember sitting there thinking as we were shooting these last few scenes, going, my God, it's been 5 years. This is a big chunk of life. And a cycle that started with, you know, us in a room at Russ Krasnoff's office, you know, talking about how do we cast this show and how do we beat the network at the casting.
What were the choices that you were looking for Troy at that point?
Woody Harrelson
early on,
right? But I've often told the story of how it was that was the most weird. That was the weirdest part of the casting process. Was that like Joe actually shared a manager with Donald and showed me the Derek comedy videos, and my biggest resistance at the time was like, oh well, this character I never pictured him black. I know we're doing race neutral casting, but he's kind of a dummy. Do we have to go back through it and kind of like make it not accidentally racist if this bright young black kid is playing this role? And it was the weirdest, like, that's how the story began, with this strange show that like kind of broke a lot of like rules that I had in my head.
I read with a couple of guys auditioning for Troy.
Well, by the way, great guys, including I think the blonde guy from Breaking Bad who shoots the kid. Didn't he come
God.
in? Like anybody you could ever
Jesse Plemons?
Yeah. And I mean anybody like but all they had in common was like they're corn-fed quarterback guys.
Right. Yeah.
And so when I all of a sudden Joe showed me the Derek comedy video and I was like, well wait, that I need to do we have to do a rewrite on the script? I'm like, no, you don't. But that because actors become the characters become the actors.
Well, and that's the thing about the pilot process is it's not a perfect process. It's an incredibly flawed process. And if sometimes you have an idea of what it is that you want, but that may not be available to you. So then you have to go, well, what is the most talented person I can get my hands on, and then what can we do with that? You know?
But what you and Anthony taught me in casting was you guys said pilot season every year, it's everybody's cruising the parking lot for a parking spot near Walmart. And people will keep telling you in the passenger seat, they'll go, that one, that one, that one. If you don't take that one, you're going to lose it later. And you guys said, that may be true, but you can't, that's no excuse to park in a bad spot.
Right.
You have to keep looking around, and you may end up parking like really far from Walmart, but you still got to find the spot that you like. That's where the metaphor breaks down. But you're like it was. Don't let them trick you into thinking that you gotta. You gotta
Donald
settle.
is. I'm sorry. Just so I understand, Donald is a Walmart of actors.
He's the parking spot.
Walmart parking spot of it.
He's the Walmart
He's the
parking
parking
lot.
spot that opens up if you let go of a bunch that you think you can never do better than.
The great LeVar Burton, ladies.
And suddenly you're parked next to the front door.
You'll end up parked inside Walmart.
Right.
It's that's what Donald Glover and Danny Pudi and all these guys are. You end up with your car inside the fucking Walmart. You end up with a helicopter on top of the roof. And here's Amy Mann singing a Styx song.
And she recorded it just for you?
Yeah, we wanted to tie all these things together.
Thank you, Amy, man.
So has Donald returned any of your phone calls?
Yes.
Anyone?
I think he's been very happy with the season, but
I gotta
I think
text
he's also dealing with his label issues right now.
You mean being labeled as a comedy superstar?
So I was hanging out. I was hanging out with Cap and Donald the other day.
What a name drop.
Joe Russo is so cool.
Oh, I can't believe what a life you have.
I better have a cameo in Cap 5. I'm not asking for Cap 4.